Hi guys, my name is Girish, your host for today for Back to Basics. What are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about expressions. What is expressions? Why do we need expressions? Is expressions needed of day-to-day life? Or is it just a moment that we just walk into and sit next to a friend of yours or family members? So we're going to talk to someone today. He has his own podcast. He has his own expression podcast, you want to call it. But he is something that I watch his podcast, and it made me inspire to bring him into my show, and we'll talk to each other regarding expressions. His name is Andrew Lopez. Andrew Lopez, thanks for coming on my show.
Absolutely, man. Good times. Glad to be here. I love what you got going on, and expressing's huge. It's been so transformative for me over the last, I'd say, a year and a half, but really over the last 10 months with what we've been going through. So pleasure to be here, and very excited to kind of express together and share.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about yourself. What do you do, and why do you think I brought you into the show?
That's a good question. For me, I've reinvented a couple times. 2020 was the year of reinvention. I started a small show around reinvention, but first it was more so just being a small business owner, being a videographer. I used to run around town here in Orange County with my camera and my lights and lavaliers and all that kind of stuff. And then for us in March, it was kind of the big, everyone stays inside, and I've kind of been here ever since. So that was me kind of, how do I change? How do I still get people to express, still get people to share their story via video? But there was a big change there. So I sat here like we all did in March and April and kind of watched our fair share of Hulu and Netflix, as we all did. And I kind of just had an idea. I would start asking people kind of on Zoom, since I couldn't be out filming and recording things live. I was like, oh, I'll just do this via Zoom. I'll just connect with people locally. And I started a show called Reinvention Daily. And it was just a daily show I posted on LinkedIn. It was, 2-3 minutes long. I would ask people 2 questions. What's one thing you've had to reinvent, and what's the conversation that you want to start? And it just kind of turned into this hobby, and kind of turned into this thing that I really gravitated towards. And it was basically just business owners all across the world that were expressing and being willing to share the reinvention story. I think a lot of us had to reinvent in some way, shape, or form. Some say pivot, some say adapt. I just chose reinvention because I went through a personal and professional reinvention all at the same time. So it was just getting these people that I would just meet, these strangers that became some of my greatest friends and some of my greatest collaborators and colleagues. And again, it's all just on the power of asking a simple question and sharing that out with the world, just like you and I are doing right now. It's all about expression. It's all about sharing and not comparing, because more people right now, I believe, are listening, paying attention, and seeking to be understood more than ever before. And we're able to connect with people all over the country, all over the world. So it's such a powerful thing. And just what that's turned into is just me capturing footage via Zoom and helping people start their own little miniature shows, like my show now called Elevated Conversations. So it's getting people to express, it's getting people to uplifting others and getting people involved in a conversation. And I feel like that's the best way we can spark our own engagement on a place like LinkedIn or a place like Facebook is when we bring people together to be a part of a conversation. That's the shift, and that's what I'm trying to continue with video right now and as we move forward. So I call myself a LinkedIn showrunner. I call myself a online extrovert. I don't really have a title because I've changed so many times, but for the most part, it's just I love uplifting people, and I think the best way we can do that is through the vessel of video.
So, guys, expression is the way to express your feelings. That how do you go and talk to other people? Okay, it's not for everybody. I totally agree. Getting on YouTube or getting on podcast, or even just going to a person and start recording. It is not for everyone. I get that, but expression with recording or without recording, it is still your expression that you need to come out, and that's what Andrew did. And Andrew, so now, what do you think? This is going to be an ongoing thing, or is this during the COVID times that we are gonna see more Zoom calls or YouTubes, or are we not going to see people face to face anymore?
It's a good question. I mean, I've adapted. I'm an extrovert. You know, I'm the kid who passes business cards out, goes to networking events, has my face everywhere. Like I'm that young millennial extrovert, right? And I've just changed into being an extrovert online. So for me, when the joke I've been kind of saying is when you force the extrovert to be introverted for 10, almost 12 months now, some wires kind of cross and you kind of like have to change. So some of the greatest people, and again, me saying that I was always the kid going to networking events, I was always the kid, you know, shaking hands and hey, good to meet you. I felt that energy. You know, I'm very empathetic and I feel that energy live. But I will tell you, Dresh, like I've gotten more value out of connection virtually with people all across the world than I ever did in person shaking someone's hand. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the sense of like, there's so many people out there. And I used to think you can only make an impact in our local neighborhood, right? Hear me in Costa Mesa, California, right here next to Irvine, Orange County. Like, I used to think I only would be able to make an impact here because this is where I live, this is where I drive. I drive down the 405 for meetings. But then when this whole thing happened and our physical worlds got smaller, our virtual worlds got extremely bigger. So to be
Mhm.
able to have conversations, you know, with you across the country and to be able to have conversations with my friends out in Denmark and my friends out in the UK, like I'm sitting here traveling the world from my bedroom studio and I'm able to connect with more people and influence and be influenced and be impacted by others all across the world. So for me, if they snap their fingers tomorrow and say, hey, all is good, let's go back to it. Yeah, I'll go shake some hands. I'll go to a networking event. But for me, I've lived life virtually more than I ever have, and I've embraced it. So elevated conversations, you know, Reinvention Daily is on a slight hiatus, but I have my dear friend Mary out in Denmark who runs Reinvention Europe, and her season 2 started this month. And everything I do is now through Zoom. So it's like I've been transformed. I've been just primed now to stay virtual and help people all across the world. So
So
that
Andrew, so do you agree? This is just my thought process, but maybe it might be yours too. But you want to make change and you want to engage at least one person to your channel. And if you can just do that, it means that you have connected somewhere. Okay. For me, I've connected with my guests. And if I can connect with that one guest, then I think I've done my job.
everything to me starts with a conversation. You and I are
Yes.
having a conversation now, and where this conversation can go. I think what's so fascinating is we used to look at conversations as there's always an end goal here. You go to a lunch meeting, you go to a coffee meeting. Hey, there's always that banter in the beginning, but then there's always that slight feeling like, okay, we have to get a job done. Where can I where can you help me? Where can I help you? It was always kind of that feeling, right? And
Yes.
again, I love those meetings. I love that. But now my whole shift in the conversation is in being expressive and being open. And it's not like I'm sharing all my personal problems, or I'm not like I'm standing in line at Walmart or Target telling everybody what's going on. But when I meet people like this and I talk to people on Zoom, I really lead with that. And I always try and, you know, Donnie Bovine, he's out in Texas. You know, I had him on my show a couple weeks ago, and he's a star networker. And he said something that was so powerful that I just lived every day. It's like when we network, we should be opening doors for other people.
That's right.
And that's so for me, when it comes to the conversations that I start every day on the show or conversations like this, you never know where a conversation can lead you. It now takes away that, oh, hey, I'm meeting someone for the first time. I have to give them something so they can exit the meeting, right? Like
Hmm.
it was always that weird dynamic, but now it's always like, how can I open a door for you? It's the first question I ask people when I first meet people before I even record. If I'm on the show, it's like, you know, who are you looking to connect with, and who can I connect you with? I'm not some, you know, influencer, some mogul with 30,000 connections, but like there's might be someone when they're, hey, I'm looking for someone in this realm. Like, okay, I have my friend here, my friend here. For me, I feel like, as you've said, I've done my job. I've impacted somebody, even on a small scale, because that small impact could then lead to so many other things. It's the same thing with elevated conversations. You know, my 3-minute segment on LinkedIn almost every day. For me, I love connecting with the guest. I love uplifting them, giving them the exposure. But for me, if they move one person in the audience, and because my audience every day is international, that's impact. If you took 2020 again, and I had 120 people that I interviewed on Reinvention Daily, and then my friend Mary had her pilot season, she did 8 episodes of Reinvention Europe. And if you take 128 people that I talked to over 7 months, And there's probably thousands and thousands of people that commented and liked. And if you can run all the numbers, so for me to move thousands of people through a 3-minute show, that's impact. But the best part about the whole thing, Girish, is all that impact across the world has now looked back at me in the eyeballs and has impacted me. So no matter what, you could turn LinkedIn off tomorrow. You could turn my business off tomorrow. And I've already forever been impacted by people across the world. And I can take that motivation externally and internally, and I can do the next thing. Because impact, I think, and that's why I deem 2021 as the year of impact, is because I think all of us have been sitting with this guilt or this forgiveness or this expression that we haven't shared. And now we want to utilize that after being through this all together for a whole year last year almost. And now we're doing what we can. So I think it's all here to stay, my friend. I think it's all about that conversation. You never know where a conversation can go or where it can lead you. And that's why I always encourage people to take that meeting, to take that conversation, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 30 minutes or 2 hours.
But
You never,
Andrew, but if you think about this, your first expression could be your last expression. So you have to make sure you you have to be a little engaging on your first expression or your um, first meet, let's say, or first
oh,
talk, let's say.
yeah, there's more to it virtually because you can see someone still, but you can't necessarily feel the energy of sitting across the table. So it's different. You got to be more present, but at the same time, I think it's just I've given people more of me than I ever did in person. And
That's
these are,
right.
you would think through a screen that you would have this curtain or like, hey, I'm just gonna show all my good stuff. I'm gonna buck up, but I've been more genuine, more real, more vulnerable with people. And that's been a shift with me, but I think people have been really receptive to that. And as I said, people are really receptive to a lot of things right now. I know the world's still in a weird place. We are all kind of trying to find where to go. A lot of us are sitting with that, hey, I've been wanting to do this for 20 years or 10 years. I've been wanting to make this decision. And it's like, now's the time to take a hold of what we want to do. I think a lot of people are, especially now in this new year, people are really starting to kind of feel that like, okay, now maybe is that time. Maybe I should start that podcast. Maybe I should start that side gig. Maybe I should leave this corporate job. Like that's kind of the collective that we're all feeling in some way, shape, or form. I mean, to me, being the single 28-year-old guy with the small business, but there's other things that I feel like, should I focus more internationally? Should I? So it's all about taking advantage of what's here. But you're right on that expression. I've had conversations with people that I might have been too much for. And not that I come out guns blazing it and telling people all my problems. It's just I'm willing to share. I'm willing to express. I'm willing to find it. But on the flip side, I always match the energy of who I'm talking to. So if I need to, be more receptive and be the ear, that's me too. Like I think expression and reception go hand in hand. It's not always just pour it all out and hope that someone listens. It's a dance, right? It's a waltz, it's a tango, you know, it's a salsa, whatever you want to whatever you want to
Yeah.
do.
So, I mean, even if it is a 2 minute or a 3 minute talk or a 45-minute talk or a 1 hour episode or whatever you want to call it, it has to be engaging, has to be entertaining, and leave it an impact
Mhm.
at that. Because out of that 45 minutes, maybe the last 30 minutes is the best. So, expression and engaging people is the key. Is the key. So Andrew, before I let go and you leave the show, any last words before we head out?
No, I mean, a pleasure being here with you, and just I think the opportunity, and it's a powerful thing. I encourage people to simply just share and don't compare. I got that from my good friend out here in San Diego, Arch Houston, and he always said, no matter what we do, we must share and not compare. I think a lot of things in the world with social media has always been kind of a looky loo and hey, look at what I'm doing, look at this, look at that. But I feel that most people are starting to actually more so share and get people involved. So no matter what it is, as I say for my show, or as I say to people that I work with, don't be afraid to press play. Don't be afraid to just hit record on Zoom or on your iPhone and share a message. Video doesn't have to be fancy. I think that's a fear that people have, is like, oh, it doesn't have these emojis that flash up or these jump cuts or this banner or this font. I think people get, it doesn't look good. And I'll tell you, message is everything. I've seen some cool videos that look like they've been shot by Tarantino on LinkedIn. I don't know, I couldn't even tell you what the hell the message is. And I see people just with their phone, just like this, a little shaky, and they've almost brought me to tears. So it's all about the message. It's all about sharing. We all have that voice. We all have something to say. I'm just saying to say it and express it. So that's me, my friend. That's pretty much how it goes. And I'm always open to conversations. My show is open to anybody. I ask one simple question: what's the conversation that you want to start? I share it out every day on LinkedIn. You could be anywhere across the world, and I'm here to listen and I'm here to share. So,
Andrew, thank you again for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
So, guys, we spoke with Andrew Lopez. What did he say? He said, share and compare, or compare and share. So you decide how you want to do and deal with your life on that part. It could be positivity, it could be negativity, but you have to run your life the way you want to express. Now, as usual, at the last of the episode, I always come up with a quote of the day. The number of minutes don't matter. The impact you leave with what you do in those minutes matter. So, again, guys, let's meet up next week. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today. Thank you, guys. Enjoy your day. Next week's episode on Back to Basics.
What do you thought? What is your thought process on this?
So I feel, as I mentioned earlier, with a symphony and orchestra, the blended whiskey kind of gives you a very harmonious taste profile, very balanced, very light, but nice. Whereas a single malt almost gives you a very distinct, sometimes a little bolder, depending on the distillery style. So if I would say a single malt should give you a little bit